Right, guys, how's it going? Today we are going to be looking at this, the Vanos system on the BMW M52. Now these obviously also did come on the M50s. Now actually, yeah, before I get into it, if you're just watching this because you want to know how to rebuild it, then go to this time here. And then that. But before we get into it, I think it's always good to explain what Vanos is, what it does, why it fails, and what happens when it fails. So yeah, let's get into this one. So yeah, what is Vanos? Basically, Vanos is So yeah, what is Vanos? Well, if you've ever wondered what Vanos is, this is what it stands for in German. And what it does is it adjusts the valve timing progressively through the revs, which gives you more power, makes the engine more efficient, and a lot better fuel consumption as well. I know a lot of people do say that they don't actually notice it in their BMWs. Well, that's usually because they haven't rebuilt it. But yeah, once you rebuild it, you definitely notice a difference. I noticed it on my M50. Sort of around 4,500 revs, you definitely feel it change. So yeah, the Vanos was brought in 1992 on the M50 engine. And then later on, I think about 4 years later, it was then brought into a double Vanos. So what we're looking at now is single Vanos, and basically that just works on the intake camshaft, whereas the double Vanos also will adjust the exhaust camshaft. So if you have watched any of my previous videos on the engine rebuild, you'll notice that the camshaft cogs and the camshafts themselves are actually separate. And basically what happens is when you go up through the rev range, a solenoid, which attaches to the Vanos system here, let me just turn this around. So the Vanos sits in the engine this way. So you'd have your camshaft here, that's your inlet one, and then your exhaust one here. Then this solenoid sits here. You have an oil feed coming from the oil housing up into here with a banjo. And then it will pump itself into this part here, which we'll take apart and have a look at in a bit. So basically when the oil gets into here, once that solenoid is opened, it will basically push this gear out, and what that'll do is we'll push into this one. Now you notice that these are splined in here, sorry, it sits that way, so it will push into this one like that, and you'll notice actually if I turn this over, it also has splines in here which then go into the camshaft. So yeah, like I say, these are splined, and what that does is allow for gradual adjustment as it slowly pushes its way into it, and so the more it pushes into it, the more angular adjustment it has. It's only a few degrees, but that's enough to cause the valves to overlap. This all works in tune with like the oil pump and that. So basically the oil pump, once you, well, the camshaft starts spinning faster and everything does when you put your foot down. So obviously that means where the oil pump is connected to the camshaft, crankshaft, that means that will also spin faster. So the faster it does, the more oil pressure will put through. So that will start pushing out like that. And so once you're at sort of like a cruising speed, your valves will be overlapped, and basically what that do is recirculate the exhaust gases, which makes it a little bit more fuel efficient. And then as you start to put your foot down a bit more and increase it through the rev range into the more higher RPMs, this will slowly start to retract, which will then give you that power at the top. So yeah, I think I've explained that right. If I'm wrong, do leave a comment in the comment section below. I've done a little bit of research on it. Also, I did know a bit before. It's one of the good things about making these videos is that I then have to do more research and I start to learn a bit more stuff that I didn't know in the first place. Now, let's look at the issues of Vanos and how you can tell that it's starting to fail. So basically, like I was just explaining, this moves in and out quite a lot through an average drive. So you can imagine that things start to wear pretty easily. They usually recommend about after 50,000 miles that you want to replace the seals and probably rebuild it. Now, bearing in mind, most E36s these days are like 20, 25 years old plus. They've done a lot of driving, a lot of mileage. Like mine was on 130,000, I think, on a previous engine. So, you know, that should have been replaced almost 3 times. Obviously, I've only done it once. I'm assuming I'm probably the only person that's done it, because I don't think actually many people do this. I was talking about the issues of them. So there'll be a few different issues, but I mean these can also be traced back to other parts of the engine failing maybe. But you'll find it's very sluggish below 3000 RPM. Another sort of sign could be that you have rough idle. So when it's idling, the revs could dip. You'll find also that you might have cold start issues or sort of check engine lights, but those also can be a lot of other things. Now, a way to tell if you have the engine out or whatever, or if you've got the actual Vanos system apart, is an actual physical sign would be, so basically the hexial gear here, the one that moves in and out, they'll have a little bit of side-to-side play, but if they have an axial play, which basically means, so pretend my hand's the cog, it will move like this. The axial play is more like that, which they shouldn't do, so it have like more of a curve to it, which this one does have. So yeah, basically how this happens is that inside there are little thin washers and they start to wear down with the bearings over time, once again with how much it moves. Now what I have is, I'll show you this more once we take it apart, it'll probably be a bit easier to show you then, is a replacement washer. I guess it's a washer? Yeah, Vanos Repair Kit, which basically is thinner than the OEM one. And what that does is counts for the wear that's been put into those bits. So it'll stop having the wobble and rattle. Yeah, I think that's it for the moment. I think what we're going to do now is look into taking it apart. Right. My tripod isn't that big, so hopefully I've had to balance it on like a bucket and a tray, so hopefully it's not going to wobble around too much. Now, with taking this Vanos apart, you do want to put it into something that will hold it. It'll be very hard to do this just by holding it with your hand and undoing stuff. So I put it into a wooden vise to make sure that it doesn't damage like the flat faces of the actual units itself, so you don't have any oil leak when it goes back on the engine. If you don't have an actual wooden vise, you can just put it in like a normal vise with 2 bits of wood, like you want to use like softwood. What we first need to do is remove this section here. I think they're just 10mm nuts. So let me grab my 10mm. Go, like you see, that did just move then, but that's because I put it in gently again, because I don't want to press on it too much. Now, I haven't done this in over a year, so hopefully I can remember how to do it. There we are, that just pulls off. Yeah, that's the actual Vanos section removed from the actual unit. So I'm going to put that to one side. So to take these units apart, you don't actually need any specialist tools. You can buy a special socket, but I think it was like £10–15 when I looked at one, just out of curiosity. But I got was an 18mm socket and flattened it down on a grinding wheel. Obviously you can use like an angle grinder or something like that to flatten it down, because basically what it is there's this nut here, and as you can see it's a really short depth. Now most sockets, can you see on this one, actually dip in. I don't actually know why they do it, but they do. So if you put a normal one on there, you can tend to slip it and ruin it. So what we're going to do now is push that back in. I'm going to clamp it back in the wooden vise, and we'll undo that. So yeah, I have actually already undone this one. I used a mixture of impact guns. This one I don't know whether it was very good or not. On my M50 when I'd done that, I used a Clark's proper torque impact gun, and it got it straight off. Unfortunately that's broken now because I've had that for a few years. So I ended up doing that, and then that wasn't quite cutting it, so I then used a ratchet and just really pushed against it and put weight down on it, trying to keep it straight as possible. And yeah, so that's now undone. Right, so in order of appearance, that is the nut. That is a bearing, and then I think we need to undo this bit here, this Torx bit. Now this is an opposite thread, so just remember when you're undoing that. I'm going to undo that and then come back to this. You don't need to see that really. Got there, got that bit. Another bearing. And then if it comes out, just trying to get this bit out of this washer, and this is the bit, oh there it comes, is what comes in the rebuild kit. There, so we'll put that there for one side.
just going to clean this up. The next thing I'll do is we'll take off this seal as well, which is quite simple. Just cut this off, and then there's another. Just cut both of them. There's a plasticky seal and then a rubber actual seal. Right, there we are. What's that feel like? Yeah, as you can see, it starts to get a bit brittle and stuff like that. It's quite plasticky still now. Right, I'm going to clean these bits up, and then we will get back to installing the stuff. Okay, so this is all clean and good to go now. So yeah, I've got the new Bison seal here, and this new like washer spacer, whatever you want to call it. It's almost, well, I guess it's more like a bearing race really. What I'll do is I'll just open it up and we can sort of compare it to the old one. It starts to wear on side these washers here, so you got that one there, and then this one in the middle of the two bearings. As you can see, it starts to wear, and basically then what happens is that creates a space, a bit of a gap inside this one, which is causing the actual can't remember what it's called now, this cog, we're going to call it a cog, to be able to move about. So what Bison have done, have basically machined, it's probably going to be quite hard to see, especially with my hands, but on a flat surface there is, you know, I can feel it with my thumb now there. They've machined this down to be a smaller one. Now I guess you could do this yourself, maybe on a bit of sandpaper to make it a bit smaller. However, you do want to get it perfectly flat, so that's best. I mean, you could always take it to a machine shop if you want. To be honest, I just find it easier. Here's my old one from my M50 as well. Got two of those now. I find it easier just to pay however much it was. I can't remember how much it is for a new one. So yeah, I'm going to put that there. And I think what we'll do is we will replace the seals on this first. If it makes sense to me. Now, a lot of people say you can soak these in hot water just to get them in place. Especially this one where it's a bit of plastic. They don't always stretch that well like this rubber stuff. I mean, you can see the difference there in how these just act really compared to, you know, how compared to that old one. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be using a bit of assembly lube to help put these together. Perfect. I'm going to whack some on this as well. Hopefully it's going to go straight on. The last thing I want to do is break this as well. There we are. And that was quite simple, just to put those together. Right, so the next step, we're going to put these together. As you can see, what I've done is I line these all in the way they come out. And as you can see, I'm just coating everything in this assembly lube. I have also sprayed a lot of it with WD-40 as well. Just going to make sure that bearing's coated, and that will sink around into it as well. And like that. Remembering that this is opposite thread. Right, I'm just going to put that in a vise just to tighten it up as well. Cool, so that little bolt in there is all torqued up. And yeah, they're torqued up to 8 Newton meters, so not a great amount. And then this little top cap bit, that is torqued up to 30 Newton meters, I think. 40 Newton meters. Cool, so now that's all done up, it's time to put it back in the units itself. Now, just for the purpose of the video, I'm going to put this back together. I still actually want to clean this up a bit more because it's still a bit dirty. I know it doesn't really need it, but you know, if I'm doing it, I might as well get it clean properly the first time. So, what we're going to do is just put this bad boy back on. Now, I would chuck a load of assembly lube and that in here, but like I say, this is going to be coming back off, so I feel like it's a bit of a waste. So, yeah, we're just going to do these up. And yeah, so these bolts here, they should be done up to 10 Newton meters of torque, I think. As you can see, we've got no play in there now. That should pull out a little bit easier than that. It's probably just because there's no lube in it. But yeah, there we are. I don't want to pull that too. Actually, I'll tell you what. We'll whack some lube in there quick. There you are. Cool. Right. That's a lot better. But as you can see, there's now no play in it. So that's going to make the car a lot more faster and a lot more efficient as well, just in general. That's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Once again, as usual, if you do have any questions, do leave them in the comments or message me or whatever. And yeah, I'll see you on the next video.